Digital security by its very nature has to be at the forefront of innovation. I mean, what would you say now is the cutting edge?
Now, if I take what I did in my previous role, which was really focusing around network automation and integration, where where APIs, that was a core focus of my role. But one of the interesting things, one of the interesting projects I got to work on was working with the internet exchanges and how we bring those workloads closer to the edge. And the project that I got to work on was interesting in the nature of when an enterprise sets up shop, shall we say, within a data center, and they want to sort of sell their services, whether it be e-commerce or whatever their business is, it's media or whatever it is. They go into a data center, they set themselves up, they purchase some space, power, connectivity, and that could take up to 6 months. And then they need to ensure that data flows out the system, so you have what's called internet exchanges. So everything that most of our data that flows go through what's called an internet exchange. The problem that they faced was that and enterprises face is that when they want to scale their business, it means, right, I need to go to, let's say, take example, Germany. Let's say, Sarah, you wanted to go set up shop in Germany and saying, well, business is really successful in the UK, I need to go move it into Germany, and I need to be closer to all my peers that are there. So any of the SaaS platforms that you're using, any other platform, I need to be there. Unfortunately, that can typically take up to 6 months or 12 months, depending on the investment you need to get there. Is it going to work? What happens if it doesn't work? You're going to have to roll that all back and what have you. And so we looked at a way of going, well, how do we use the network? How do we use automation? How do we use integration to make that really, really seamless? And so we worked on a project which that allowed enterprises to effectively roll their infrastructure out within the space of a few minutes. And so what it led to was the ability for not having everything centrally processed, but having everything at the edge. And hence, that's where the proliferation of edge started. That once you do that, you set up shop, and that's an interesting project, and that's great. What happens is other organizations then start to think about, well, how do I set up at the edge? And so that, with the rise of, shifting gears here slightly, with the rise of containerization and 5G and IoT, people are now thinking about, well, it's good enough for me to set up shop there, but I actually want to be a little bit autonomous and set up lots of edge workloads. So an interesting stat I saw the other day was that 90% of 9% of breaches are around misconfigurations when people put their infrastructure within containers, and as these are popping more and more up around the edge, it brings their own problem sets, right? Especially with the event of 5G, IoT, more and more of these devices. How do we actually go about securing them? How do we ensure that there aren't any bad actors who are going to take advantage of the infrastructures out there? So part of what Entrust is working on, what I'm working on, is around securing devices, securing the authentication, the platform itself, and making sure that these sort of misconfigurations don't happen, and that when you do roll platforms such as these out, and this could be anywhere in the world, that they're all secure.
So the pandemic has obviously speeded up adoption of all of these things, and security is going to become more and more important because of that, because it's going to be everywhere, isn't it? Everyone needs this.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because not only are you seeing more and more workloads popping up, but you're seeing something quite interesting happening within the data center industry as well. You're seeing what are called edge data centers popping up as well, where people are putting their hyper-converged infrastructure in there and running things like Red Hat or VMware or whatever cloud platform they want, so whether it be private or public, and they're processing more and more of that data at the edge. But at some point in time, that data does need to be then transported back to wherever that location is, and therefore latency is really, really quite key. Having really solid network links and being able to transport data backwards and forwards is quite key. But as we as you said, having security at the edge and at the core is now become quite relevant.